Hey, Jermaine Griggs here, creator of Automation Mondays. And if you want to know what I call the best and the worst number in business, tune in to today's episode because my perspective will shock you. It'll inform how you focus, what you focus on, where you focus, the order in which you focus on things, and ultimately how to take your business to the next level. Hello, Jermaine Griggs here, and welcome back to another edition of Automation Mondays. Now, if you're just joining me for the first time, this is the video series where every week, without fail, I answer a question or issue concerning lead generation, sales nurturing and conversion, systems, funnels, and obviously automation. And so if you want to see past episodes, you can just go over to automationmondays.com and you'll see a wealth of information and knowledge there. Now, this week, I want to talk about and take things a step further with the topic, the best and the worst number in business. Now, my mentor, Corey Rudl, I remember back in 2002 when things really turned around for me. And you may know my story. I mean, grew up in the inner city. I started HearAndPlay.com with just $70 with the dream to teach people how to play the piano by ear. And I struggled for a good 16 to 24 months in college at that time, trying to figure this thing out. Learned about direct response marketing. If you've never heard of that, write that down, and how to really sell, the whole sales process, lead generation and conversion and all that stuff. And Corey Rudl, my mentor, who's not with us today, he passed away some 11 years ago. But I was able to become friends with him, travel with him, speak for his company while running my company. And it's been a journey. And his mentor, Dan Kennedy, I began to study from him as well. And many of you may be familiar with him. He's been in the game 40 years. And he's got this line that says, the worst number in business is, and can you guess it, is 1, right? And I'll write that down. And the premise of that, right, and you can probably figure it out, why the worst number in business is 1, because diversity, right? Diversification of strategies and tactics and lead generation mechanisms and sources of traffic and media tools and all the different things that you can do. And to rely on just one of those, obviously, if that goes away or stops working, then you're vulnerable. And we get that, right? So on one end, yeah, the number 1 is the worst number in business, right? But I want to add something to that, right? I also believe that it's the best number in business, and it's the best number to start with. And you'll know where I'm going with this very soon. The problem that I find amongst entrepreneurs and small businesses, especially clients that come to me, is they're doing so much. They're trying to make their social media work, and then they've got all these products, and they've started with the end in mind, and I'm all for that. I love Jim Rohn. You want to figure out, your final destination or somewhere close to it strategically. And yes, there's going to be multiple products and services and things that you can offer your customers, but I find a lot of people got a big mess going on and nothing optimized, right? And what I've learned in my career, and especially in the last better half of the decade, is if you can get one thing right to begin with, one correct or optimized funnel, one very successful product, right, that really speaks to the needs and markets of the massive side of your market, and you can convert and bring people into this one funnel, it can change your life and it can change your business. And really, this isn't just me talking. This is founded in Pareto principle, right? If you've been on any of my webinars or have learned from me, you know that I'm a big fan of Vilfredo Pareto. I think he was born in late 1800s, maybe 1889 or something like that. And he's the one that brought us the 80-20 rule. And what it really teaches us is that distribution is never equal, that there's always this small thing that's responsible for this big thing, right? You can take it to your customers. There's always a small group of customers when you look in your database that are going to be responsible for like majority of your profits, right? And so I'm going to write that down as well, the 80-20 rule, and the fact that distribution, right, is never equal. Distribution is never equal. So if you think that, I can go do these different things, 10 different things, and stay busy and stay active. Another thing I talk about that I learned in, I believe it was Peter Drucker's book, Mistaking Activity for Productivity. Just doing stuff, thinking that busyness is business. Yeah, I think the words differ by one letter, but they're not the same. And a lot of people are just doing a lot of things. Maybe they heard the worst number in business is one, and so they're just trying to just do a bunch of different things to have, diversity of this and that. And I don't disagree with that, but you have to be cognizant of the order in which you do things. And I don't think it's simultaneously, especially in the beginning, where you're doing a bunch of stuff. I think it's sequentially, right? So the best number in business is also one. And if you think about Pareto principle, right, there's an 80-20 inside of an 80-20. So let me prove it to you, right? So if 20% of your customers are worth 80% of your profits, or let's look at productivity. If 20% of the things that you can do in the run of a day are worth 80% of the output, right? Let's just say you've got units of energy, right? And you got 10 units of energy and you have 10 units of results or output, right? In the run of a day from a productivity standpoint. You got a lot of stuff to do. What Pareto is saying is that you can spend your time on 2 of the 10 things, right? You're a business owner. Sure, you can try to figure out how to do 10 things, but if you can just figure the best 2 things, the most efficient and productive 2 things that you should be doing in that run of the day, it can be responsible for, right? If we've got 10 units of potential results or output or whatever you want to call it, it can be responsible for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units of results. And what are most of us doing? What mistake are most of us making? We're thinking we can do 10 things here, and then we're going to get 10 units of results. In other words, distribution is equal. 1 unit of input in is 1 unit of output out, right? But it just doesn't work that way. In your sales funnels, right? In your traffic generation, right? You're going to have one source for the most part, few sources that are going to hit it out of the park for you. Yeah, there's a million things you can do. You can do what I did in the beginning when I only had time and I didn't have money, and I'd go post in bulletin boards and, some of the things that you could do in the year 2000, and free-for-all sites and classified sites and things like that. But even there was a Pareto, principle. And many of us are busy doing things that aren't going to move the needle for us, right? And if you actually look inside of the 80-20, right, it gets even deeper, because you can just take the 80 and you can say, well, what's 80% of that? You can take the 20 and you can say, what's 20% of that? And it gives you the next kind of layer of Pareto principle, if you will. And what that comes out to is the 64-4 principle. Maybe you've never heard it, but you can call it like 80-20 squared or something like that. And so if 80-20 is true, then if you keep going, 64-4, give or take, is going to be true, which means there are 4 units of whatever that can be responsible for majority of the results, majority of the profits, majority of the time, whatever it is on that output side that you seek. So that's eye-opening, meaning 464. So if you're willing, somebody says, I want 100%, Jermaine. That's why I go hard. Even in the 80-20 example, if you're willing to give up just 20%, which most of us aren't getting 100% anyway, right? We all fall short, right? If you're willing to give up 20% in lieu of just having to focus on 20%, like my day, one of the bigger things of transformation that happened in my own life, you can go back to pictures just 5 years ago, and I was out of shape, I was overweight, I was, focused on the business, sure enough, but at what cost? If I'm gonna be on a computer all day and still the amount of units of output I'm getting, I'm not moving the needle, nearly as much as what if I could do the same or even better and only spend, 2 of the 20% of the time at the computer, behind the laptop, spinning my wheels or doing whatnot. And that's what I did. I learned that. It's not new to me, but I started focusing with the free time. I could work out, I could go to CrossFit, I could get other areas of my life solidified. And that's the same message that I want to send to you on the other end of that camera, fellow entrepreneur. You can hone in on the 64-4. Now, it goes a step further, right? If you do 80-20 on the 64, you'll get something like, right? So what's 80% of 64 and then what's 20% of 4? We're going another level into Pareto principle, right? And I think I did these calculations earlier. It's 51.2 to 0.8. Now, basically, these are some fancy numbers. You got decimals involved and all that stuff. Let's just round it up. Okay, so for the most part, 52 to 1. Let's just say that, right? 52 to 1, which means I could focus on one thing. I'll let that sink in. One thing, if you believe Pareto's the premise here. One thing can be responsible for half my success. One thing. And if you've read the book, there's a book titled that. If you go back and listen to interviews, some of the most successful businessmen and women, it was that one thing, whatever it was, that one product that entered the marketplace that changed the game for them, that one business model change or motive or modality of doing business, that one thing. And that's my message for you. I beseech you that it may be a webinar for you. It may be an automated webinar. It may be a video sales letter, a sales letter. But put your energy into figuring out that one thing, that first thing, and blocking out all other things. To-do lists. I read a book, I forgot what it's called, but it's by a doctor. I think he was a surgeon, and it was about checklists and things like that. Your to-do lists, they're not going anywhere. Keep an Evernote of ideas and things, but they're not for now. What's for now is figuring out that one thing. And when it comes to Pareto, stuff that you shouldn't be worried about, get emails out of the way. If you're just getting started, I'm telling you, outsourcing customer service, keep a handle on it. There are ways to still keep your finger on the pulse. I use Help Scout, right? And one of the metrics that Help Scout allows us to measure is what they call happiness score. It's just like a loyalty type of metric, or what do you call it, customer satisfaction metric, like NPS. If you've heard of NPS, Net Promoter Score, not really related, but I'll write it down anyway. Research that. You've probably seen it from the world's biggest brands. How likely are you to recommend our service? Well, a version of that is kind of, in every email, we're able to just kind of gauge, if my customer service, it's very similar to NPS. For us, as long as that score is over 80, sort of like the 80-20 rule, I'm happy. I don't have to be in every email. I don't have to have control. That's one of the biggest things to give up as an entrepreneur, small business owner, is control. Nobody is as passionate as me, Jermaine. You don't understand. I gotta do emails. I gotta be on the front line of that. I gotta be shipping out products. I gotta be packing up. And that's what I did too. When I started getting sales, I remember I was up to like 300 sales a month. And me and my girlfriend, who's my wife till this day, we were packing up books because we're in business. I'm happy, I'm grateful to be in business, but not realizing Pareto principle and distribution not being equal, and that if I really spend my time on that one thing, right, that I could revolutionize my business. And I did. And it was Corey Rudel who told me that, right? So he came down to visit me. I'm still living in my college apartment, right? But this is my first year. I'm successful. I'm apartments in my own name, coming from where I come from. That was the first big stage, just being autonomous. And later I would buy my first house and then move the office to my childhood neighborhood. And I remember he came down. First of all, he parked this Ferrari in my apartment building, and I just felt like the cool kid. Who's this guy visiting Jermaine over there? And then secondly, he drove down the freeway, followed me to my office. And I was so proud with my chest sticking out to show him all the things we were doing. Here, Corey, is my packing room. This is where we ship all of our products, and we have a Pitney Bowes machine to print out the shipping labels, and then we go and take them over to the post office. Don't you love it? And one of the pieces of advice that he gave me is, Jermaine, get rid of this room. He said, get rid of this room. You have no business, and not even you, your staff have no business packing up products. And I was like 3 people at the time helping me do that. And I did that. I'm not one to try to reinvent, when I get advice from somebody I respect, I'm taking action on it. You ought to too. And so I gave it to Lisa, my fulfillment director, founder, and she's been shipping my products out for 12 years now. That's her business. That's her Pareto, but it doesn't have to be mine. And what did we start focusing on? What really moved it for me to really take things to the 7-figure level? Focusing on my marketing, becoming a marketing expert, genius, whatever you want to call it, ninja, focusing on that, focusing on copywriting. There's typically that one thing that if you focus on, and I'm a little biased, but as helm of your ship, as the captain of your ship, you ought to be chief marketing officer. If you're that type, I can just farm that out to somebody else. Yeah, you can. But I found that speed of implementation and actually knowing what I'm doing and being able to go and do it, make those changes, not relying on someone else. And we implement for other people that have that very philosophy. I'll just let Jermaine do it. And I'll do it. It ain't gonna be cheap, but I'll do it. But at the end of the day, if you got the ability to be chief marketing officer, that is the position and the focus and the perspective that will pay the biggest dividends, in my humble opinion, of doing this 16 years. Because it's gonna be that one thing, that one webinar, that one sales letter, that one device, that if you get it right, and it may take multiple iterations, reiterations, you may have to go back to the drawing board, but if you get that one thing right, for me, you know what it was in the beginning of Hear and Play? My 300-page course, The Secrets to Playing Piano by Ear. And I was just talking to my wife. This was the product that I talk about when I tell my story of having made $1,100 March 2nd, 2002. It was that product. And can you believe we're here 14 years later and I'm still selling that product? It hasn't changed. Sometimes I'm like, I need to update it. I'm telling you the truth. That was my one thing. It was like that one product. And when I think about it, that product sustained my company to the first like $500,000 in revenue, one product. Surely I would move on to DVDs and I would move on to software. But to be honest, a lot of that stuff was my entrepreneurial ADD. That one product has gone on to do multiple millions of dollars and still in existence till this day. So don't tell me that you need this, and we have it, dozens and dozens of products, and you need all these different things. That's just your excuse to, of course, spread yourself and, feel like you got things in motion and busyness and all that stuff, when it can be one product, one funnel, and you optimize the heck out of that. And you do it in that order, right? Really actually reversed. I think it's process before product. Even at Automation Clinic, you want to know a secret? I've got a few courses here. I've never had the courses ready before I sold them. There's always been a first cohort. That tells you how important the process is. You go find a buyer. You go find a hungry, desirous market. Yes, that's a word. You go find that starving crowd. You go find that marathon already marching or running, or that parade already marching. You go put yourself in front of them with an offer. They'll buy. They'll force you to create your product. Your first cohort will do that. And that's how it's worked for me. So really, that's the order of it. One thing, one process. And then, once you've got a converting funnel, a converting webinar, a converting VSL, then you go find other traffic sources. You got no business trying to go from Facebook to Google and you're only spending $100 a day on Facebook. Go optimize that. Figure out how to get that to $1,000. I know right now, as of the time of this recording, we're at about $4,000 a day on one webinar funnel. I'm not even talking about my Here and Play stuff and my other things. And we're constantly growing that because of that one thing mentality. Then you can go replicate that to Google AdWords, and then you go buy other media traffic, and then you can go get JV partners, but you can do it sequentially, not simultaneously, right? And then you can diversify and focus on reproducing what that one thing has brought you, right? So it kind of goes back to this thing I used to say a lot: inch wide, right? Inch wide, mile deep. I said this for years. Inch wide, mile deep. Said this for years, and the way I use it in my presentations when I spoke from the stage is in determining your niche and things like that. Like, you know, for me, it was like piano playing, but it wasn't just piano playing, it was piano playing by ear. We didn't do any sheet music, still don't, hardly. We did come out with something recently. And then it was like gospel piano playing by ear. Truth be told, most of my business centers around gospel music. Go figure. Only on the internet can you reach that specific of an audience that when I came on the scene was hungry for representation, hungry for solutions. That's what the internet does. You can go reach your herd, your crowd, your audience waiting, willing, able to do business with you. So that's how I normally use that analogy. But we can also apply it to what we're doing here. Inch wide in terms of processes. Right? You don't need all these things. Many of you are on so many lists, and I'm guilty of this. So many lists, and as soon as somebody mentions something new, that becomes your strategic initiative for the quarter. How can your strategic initiative for the quarter be reliant on an email you got yesterday to switch up your whole strategy? That's what we do, entrepreneurial ADD. And I have to remind myself, I either unsubscribed from everything for a season, or I use an email address that I know I'm not going to be accessing, let it all accumulate. When I need ideas, when I want to see what the market is doing and other people are into, other gurus and such, I can go to that email box. Or if I'm using my main email box, I can filter them out into mailboxes. And it's so that, you know, I'll be like, well, if Frank Kern really emails me and he's filtered into a mailbox, that'll be a problem, or my other buddy over here, but I figure it out. And when I want to go focus, it's on my strategy that I've set out to do. And until I execute and complete it, I don't know if the strategy is going to work or not for where I'm headed, but you got to do it. And so many people, they're so distracted and diversified and doing all this stuff that they don't give one thing all the energy and not results, results is what you get, but all the energy and the stick-to-itiveness and the energy, that's the word. They don't give all the energy that they need. Now, one caveat, that one thing needs to be tried and proven. You don't just go pull it out of the sky, but if you learned it from a respectable person that you believe in, you've seen the results ahead of you, paved the way, you have reason to believe that will work for you, put your head down, get it done, and let's turn it into a positive feedback loop, right? It's you go do it, look at the results, right? Let's just simplify it, right? Change my color for a second. Simplify it, you know, do it, and then analyze, right? And if it works, do more of it, Keep optimizing. I'm telling you, one funnel is enough to keep you busy for years, right? One webinar and things you can do to optimize it, right? You've seen past videos. You've got opt-in conversion to be optimized and different things and headlines. And then you've got the amount of people that show up to the webinar and things you can do there. Do you put a video on the thank you page? Do you not? What can you say to push them and build that curiosity? And then the amount of people that stay on the webinar to see, the offer that's coming, the content, all that stuff. I mean, you can stay busy on one process without looking at anything else and without embracing anything new for the moment. And it'll keep you busy, trust me, right? And so that's my message to you in this video, right? So number one, it's the best number in business for this reason, focus. You get one thing right, it can be responsible for 51.2, let's just say half of the results you seek, right? And that's just Pareto. Distribution is never equal. And then I still agree with Granddaddy Dan, Kennedy, not because Dan, if Dan ever sees us or anyone, not Granddaddy like that, but I look at it as lineage, the guy who, I took a liking to, and then he was the guy that took a liking to Dan. So it's like a granddaddy relationship, whether Dan even knows it or not. But I still agree that one is the worst number in business, because let's just say you get this dialed in and then you're ignorant or lazy or whatever the word is, and then you don't take it over and replicate it on Google or then go worry about that. Yeah, there is a time then to scale, to duplicate winning processes, diversify your traffic sources, and things like that, right? But you do that, in my opinion, in the right order and in the right time. Timing is everything, okay? So that's kind of my reconciliation of the number one and what I think about it. And in this episode of Automation Mondays, I just wanted to give you my perspective on that. Hopefully you've taken away some nuggets in this video. I've given you some food for thought, and you'll go on to optimize, to, put these things in place, but focus. Tony Robbins says it best, where focus goes, energy flows. And that's what this game is about, focus and energy. Focus and energy, and the intimate relationship between those two. So Jermaine Griggs signing off. This has been another edition of Automation Mondays on behalf of Automation Clinic. And remember, let your business run itself. See you next time.